Do they even know how to use one? The room erupted in laughter as Alex Kepler stepped into the lecture hall, the hum of neural interfaces buzzing faintly in the air. Alien students from over a dozen species sat in tiered rows, their neural ports glowing with faint bioluminescence, a subtle but constant reminder of their intellectual augmentation. Each of them turned to gawk at Alex, the lone human, a being without an interface port, without the enhancements deemed essential for academic life across the galaxy. Alex ignored the whispers and kept walking, their boots clicking softly on the polished floor of the Galactica Academy's grand auditorium. The human had faced this ridicule since the day they arrived, the first of their kind accepted into the Academy, a place where intelligence wasn't just prized, it was engineered. The instructor, a towering insectoid figure with multifaceted eyes, chittered in annoyance. "Settle down. Species diversity is a core tenet of our institution." Their voice clicked through the universal translator, though the sarcasm wasn't lost. Alex slid into an empty seat near the back, pulling out a worn notebook and pen, artifacts as archaic as their unaugmented mind. Around them, alien students synchronized their neural interfaces with the Academy's systems, instantly downloading course materials, referencing libraries of galactic knowledge, and multitasking with a seamless precision that left Alex a step behind in every class. Honestly, an avian student to their left muttered, her feathers ruffling, "Why even bother coming here if they won't upgrade?" Alex's grip on the pen tightened, but they kept their eyes on the instructor. "I prefer to do things my way," they said evenly. The avian blinked, then let out a chirping laugh. "Your way? You're practically a fossil." Before Alex could respond, the instructor activated the lecture's holographic display. A series of complex diagrams appeared, depicting interdimensional equations and multilayered spatial algorithms. "These are foundational problems for the upcoming Galactic Intelligence exam," the instructor announced. "You will compete with students from across the galaxy. Your neural interfaces will aid you in processing and solving these tasks." For those of you without interfaces, their eyes flicked toward Alex, "You may find this challenging." The alien students smirked. Alex's face remained stoic, but their mind raced. The Galactic Intelligence exam wasn't just a test, it was a proving ground, a stage where the brightest minds competed to earn their place in the galactic intellectual elite. Failure would mean public humiliation, success could redefine how the galaxy viewed humans. The lecture proceeded at breakneck speed. Diagrams shifted faster than Alex could sketch, and questions flew as neural interfaces processed data in milliseconds. Alex relied on their memory and intuition, painstakingly piecing together solutions while others barely needed to think. When the session ended, the avian student beside Alex glanced at their sparse notes and scoffed. "Good luck, human. You'll need it." Alex stood, meeting the avian's gaze. "I'll see you at the exam," they said simply, their voice steady despite the weight of every skeptical eye in the room. As Alex walked out, whispers trailed behind them. A human, unenhanced and unaugmented, daring to take on the galaxy's best and brightest? It was madness. Or perhaps it was the beginning of something far greater. The human is taking the exam? Are they trying to set a record for the fastest failure? The laughter echoed through the corridors of the Galactica Academy, an unsettling harmony of voices, clicks, hisses, and chirps. Word of Alex Kepler's decision to compete in the Galactic Intelligence exam had spread across the campus, fueling a wildfire of ridicule. For most students, this exam was a daunting challenge even with neural interfaces, the galaxy's pinnacle of technological achievement. For Alex, a human with nothing but their raw mind, it was seen as outright suicide. Alex pushed open the heavy door to the Academy's central atrium, their footsteps muffled by the polished obsidian floor. Massive holographic displays hung overhead, showcasing the countdown to the exam and a leaderboard of top-ranked competitors. Alex's name, devoid of rank or status, floated at the bottom, a glaring reminder of the impossible odds stacked against them. Kepler. Alex turned to see Nyrvek, an amphibious student with a slick, emerald-hued exoskeleton and a habit of loud mockery. Behind him stood a group of alien students, their expressions ranging from amusement to outright disdain. "You must be the bravest or the most delusional creature in the galaxy," Nyrvek croaked, his wide mouth curling into a smirk. "Do you even know what you're up against?" Alex met his gaze, unflinching. I know exactly what I'm up against. Oh, do you? Another student chimed in, her crystalline body refracting the ambient light. Because without a neural interface, you're not just behind. You're irrelevant. The group burst into laughter, and Alex clenched their jaw. They had expected this reaction, endured it since arriving at the academy. Still, the sting of their words lingered. I'm not here to compete with machines, Alex replied, their voice steady. I'm here to show what a human mind can do. A brief silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of holograms overhead. The students exchanged glances, then erupted into louder laughter, as if the notion were the punchline of an elaborate joke. Alex turned away, unwilling to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. The ridicule wasn't new, but the stakes were higher now. They could feel the weight of humanity's reputation resting on their shoulders. The Galactic Intelligence exam wasn't just a test for Alex, it was a test for their entire species. The exam briefing the next day was a spectacle. Thousands of students from across the galaxy crowded into the Academy's largest hall, their neural interfaces glowing faintly as they downloaded instructions. Alex sat quietly near the back, surrounded by the low hum of processing minds. The holographic proctor, a sleek construct of light and energy, materialized at the front of the room. The Galactic Intelligence exam will test your problem-solving, logic, adaptability, and ethical decision-making. Neural interface access is permitted but will not guarantee success. Creativity and independent reasoning are paramount. A ripple of murmurs swept through the room. Alex's ears perked up at the final sentence. Could this be their edge? Nyarvek, sitting several rows ahead, turned to smirk at Alex. Independent reasoning? That won't save you, human. But Alex wasn't listening. Their mind was already racing, dissecting the rules, searching for the gaps the neural interfaces wouldn't see. When the proctor concluded, the room fell silent, heavy with anticipation. As the countdown to the exam loomed, Alex rose and walked out, their gaze steady, their resolve unshaken. Let them mock. The exam would decide who truly belonged among the stars. Warning, neural system failure detected. The cold, automated voice echoed across the exam hall, accompanied by gasps and panicked murmurs. Alien students froze, their neural interfaces blinking erratically. Rows of glowing ports dimmed as the system's fault rippled through the room. Alex Kepler, seated near the edge of the massive hall, didn't flinch. While the other competitors clawed at their malfunctioning ports or stared helplessly at error messages, Alex's hands moved steadily, scribbling equations and notations in their worn notebook. The Galactic Intelligence exam had entered its third stage, complex, dynamic puzzles that adapted to each student's thought processes. The neural interfaces, designed to process massive amounts of data with precision, had faltered under the test's unexpected shift. The adaptive puzzles introduced randomness, creativity, and abstract reasoning, traits no algorithm could predict. For Alex, it was familiar territory. The first stage of the exam had been a predictable trial of speed and knowledge recall. Alex was unsurprised to find themselves at the bottom of the leaderboard as alien students breezed through, their neural interfaces delivering perfect answers in mere seconds. The second stage, pattern recognition, had been slightly better. While the others relied on their interfaces to scan and compute, Alex had used their own intuition and human ingenuity to make up ground. But this stage was different. The puzzles were unlike anything Alex had seen, a strange fusion of logic and creativity. One problem presented a holographic maze that changed its layout based on the solver's decisions. Another tasked students with developing a solution to a theoretical ecological collapse on a fictional planet, requiring ethical considerations and long-term planning. The alien students, conditioned to trust their neural systems implicitly, began to crumble under the pressure. Their interfaces couldn't process the unpredictability, leaving them stranded. Alex, however, thrived. Nyarvek, seated a few rows ahead, slammed his desk in frustration. The maze before him had shifted again, undoing hours of progress. His neural interface beeped frantically, its algorithms unable to adapt to the puzzle's chaotic logic. "How are they doing it?" he hissed, his large, amphibious eyes darting toward Alex. Alex didn't notice or care. They were engrossed in their work, leaning over their notebook as they sketched out pathways, erased dead ends, and adjusted their strategy in real time. Each problem was a challenge, not a crisis. It wasn't about speed. It was about understanding. The watching instructors, seated high above the exam hall, exchanged murmurs as Alex's name began climbing the leaderboard. Fascinating, one of them remarked, their insectoid antennae twitching. They're compensating for the lack of a neural interface with something else. Creativity? Adaptability? Intuition, another instructor said. A trait the neural interfaces lack. We may have overestimated the system's ability to handle this kind of test. They watched as Alex completed the maze with a fluid, deliberate motion, submitting the solution just as the timer flashed red. The final moments of the stage were chaos. Dozens of students floundered, their neural interfaces overloaded or shut down entirely. In contrast, Alex sat back in their chair, wiping sweat from their brow and flipping their notebook shut. As the stage concluded, the leaderboard updated. Gasps filled the room as Alex's name appeared, not at the bottom, but in the top 10. Nyrvek glared at the screen, his disbelief palpable. How? Before he could finish, the proctor's voice rang out. Prepare for the final stage. This will test your reasoning, empathy, and decision-making. Neural augmentation may assist, but is not required for success. Alex's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. They were just getting started. This shouldn't be possible, Nyrvek muttered, his wide eyes glued to the leaderboard. Alex Kepler's name was no longer just climbing, it had surged into the top 5. Around the exam hall, alien students whispered, their voices tinged with confusion and disbelief. The primitive human, mocked for their lack of a neural interface, was outperforming species that had perfected technological augmentation over millennia. But Alex wasn't concerned with the whispers. Their focus was locked on the holographic display ahead, where the parameters of the final stage materialized. The challenge was deceptively simple: design a solution to save a fictional colony on a simulated world. The task required ethical judgment, creativity, and resource management, all under a strict time limit. This is where they'll falter, someone muttered nearby, their crystalline body glowing faintly with neural activity. Alex smirked to themselves, unfazed. Let them think that. The scenario unfolded rapidly. The fictional colony was in the midst of an environmental catastrophe, a volatile atmosphere, dwindling resources, and a population split into factions with conflicting priorities. Students were expected to propose a plan to restore balance, minimize casualties, and ensure the colony's long-term survival. As the aliens dove into the task, their neural interfaces lit up, processing mountains of data and generating theoretical solutions at lightning speed. They worked with the cold efficiency of machines, calculating optimal outcomes and maximizing statistical probabilities. Alex, meanwhile, reached for their pen and notebook. While the others relied on data models and algorithms, Alex approached the problem from a human perspective. They didn't just look at the numbers, they imagined the lives of the colony's inhabitants. What would the farmers need to survive? How would the faction leaders react to compromise? What trade-offs could the population accept without fracturing completely? They drew from human history, centuries of wars, diplomacy, and survival against insurmountable odds. The colonists in the scenario weren't just variables in a formula, they were people with emotions, flaws, and aspirations. At the front of the hall, Nyrvek's frustration was palpable. His neural interface beeped erratically, its calculations slowed by the unpredictable complexity of the task. The simulated factions were rejecting his solutions, their programmed leaders refusing to comply with the sterile, mathematically perfect proposals his system generated. This doesn't make sense, he croaked, slamming a webbed hand on the table. Other students weren't faring much better. Crystalline figures dimmed as their processors overheated, and avian students chirped angrily as their solutions crumbled under the test's dynamic nature. Alex, on the other hand, was calm. They sketched a detailed plan in their notebook, factoring in compromises, cultural differences, and long-term sustainability. When they finally submitted their solution, it wasn't perfect, but it was practical, a plan that prioritized collaboration and adaptability over cold efficiency. Above the exam hall, the instructors watched intently. Look at this, one murmured, their many eyes scanning Alex's proposal. They've accounted for variables the others ignored. Emotional dynamics, leadership conflicts, even the morale of the colony. Curious, another instructor said, leaning closer. The neural interfaces are too rigid for this level of abstraction. They rely on predefined parameters, but the human, they're thinking beyond the framework. When the timer finally expired, the room fell into a tense silence. The leaderboard updated, and Alex's name flashed in second place, just shy of the top spot. Gasps rippled through the hall, followed by stunned silence. Nyrvek stared at the screen, his amphibious features twisted in disbelief. Second place? Without a neural interface? How is this even possible? Alex turned toward him, their expression calm but resolute. Maybe it's time you stopped asking how and started asking why. The proctor's voice cut through the tension. Final scores will be announced shortly. All students remain seated. As Alex leaned back in their chair, a faint smile played on their lips. The test wasn't just exposing weaknesses in the neural interfaces, it was proving the strength of the human mind. This final challenge will determine not only your score but your place in history. The proctor's voice echoed through the hall as the holographic display flickered to life. The final challenge loomed before the competitors, an abstract problem designed to test not only intellect but something far more elusive, wisdom. Alex Kepler leaned forward, their eyes narrowing as the scenario unfolded. The simulated colony from the previous stage had survived the environmental crisis but now faced an existential dilemma. Rapid technological progress was eroding their cultural identity. The students were tasked with devising a plan to balance innovation and tradition, ensuring societal cohesion without stifling advancement. It was a problem no algorithm could solve. Nyrvek, seated a few rows ahead, muttered under his breath as his neural interface churned. The device, glowing faintly with bioluminescence, struggled to parse the problem. Abstract concepts like cultural preservation and identity were outside the bounds of its pre-programmed logic. Unquantifiable variables, Nyrvek hissed, his frustration mounting. He glanced back at Alex, who was quietly scribbling in their notebook, their focus unwavering. They're just guessing, he said to himself, but the doubt in his voice betrayed him. Alex wasn't guessing. As the other students relied on algorithms to calculate probabilities and predict outcomes, Alex dug into their own understanding of history and human nature. The tension between progress and tradition was a story as old as humanity itself, empires that rose and fell, cultures that thrived or were forgotten, societies that flourished through balance. Alex began to write, formulating a nuanced strategy. Foster open dialogue between progressive and traditional factions. Create hybrid institutions blending technological and cultural practices. Introduce gradual reforms, preserving key traditions while embracing innovation. Their plan wasn't perfect, but it was rooted in empathy and adaptability, qualities no neural interface could replicate. The instructors, watching from their elevated perch, were transfixed. Remarkable, one murmured. They're synthesizing concepts in real time, balancing logic with emotional intelligence. Look at the neural students, another instructor said, pointing to the rows of competitors. They're stagnating. Their systems can't handle the ambiguity. The leaderboard flickered, showing Alex steadily climbing again. Nyrvek clenched his fists, his neural interface flashing with error notifications. He had tried every possible calculation, but the simulated factions rejected his proposals. His solutions were efficient, yes, but cold, mechanical, devoid of the humanity the problem demanded. Why isn't this working? He growled, his voice rising. Alex, overhearing him, glanced up briefly. Because it's not about efficiency, they said. It's about understanding people. Nyrvek glared at them, his frustration boiling over, but he said nothing. When the final timer expired, the room fell silent. The leaderboard updated one last time, and Alex's name climbed to the top, overtaking the previous first-place student by a razor-thin margin. The hall erupted in a cacophony of shocked murmurs and exclamations. Nyrvek stared at the screen, his amphibious features frozen in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. Alex rose slowly from their seat, their calm demeanor betraying the storm of emotions swirling inside. They had done it, not just for themselves, but for humanity. The proctor's voice rang out, breaking the tension. Congratulations, Alex Kepler. Your performance has set a new standard for the Galactic Intelligence exam. As Alex left the exam hall, alien students who had once mocked him now watched with a mixture of awe and respect. Nyrvek remained seated, his eyes locked on the leaderboard as if staring long enough would change the outcome. Outside, the Academy's towering spires shimmered in the golden light of twin suns. Alex took a deep breath, the enormity of their achievement sinking in. They hadn't just proven themselves, they had redefined what it meant to be intelligent in a galaxy dominated by technology. And this was only the beginning. Alex Kepler, step forward. The proctor's voice echoed across the hushed exam hall. Alex stood, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing on them as they walked toward the central podium. Around them, the alien students whispered in stunned disbelief. Just hours ago, Alex had been the subject of ridicule, mocked for their lack of augmentation. Now, they stood as the top scorer of the Galactic Intelligence exam, a feat no one had predicted, least of all the neural-augmented elite. As Alex reached the podium, the holographic proctor projected their final score for all to see, a flawless completion of every challenge and the highest cumulative score in the Academy's history. Gasps rippled through the room, and Alex could feel the tide of perception shifting. Your performance has been extraordinary, the proctor said, its sleek, synthetic form glowing faintly. But questions have arisen regarding your methods. Some claim that without a neural interface, your solutions defy explanation. We will now review your reasoning. The holographic display shifted to Alex's solution for the final challenge, showing their intricate plan to balance progress and tradition in the simulated colony. The audience watched as Alex stepped forward and began to explain. I started by considering the people involved, Alex said, their voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. Not as variables in a formula, but as individuals with hopes, fears, and histories. Progress without context is meaningless, and tradition without flexibility stagnates. My solution integrates both, creating space for dialogue and compromise. As Alex detailed their thought process, the murmurs in the crowd grew quieter. Even the most skeptical students leaned forward, captivated by the clarity and depth of their reasoning. In the back of the hall, Nyrvek slumped in his seat, his amphibious features tight with frustration. They make it sound so simple, he muttered, but even he couldn't deny the elegance of Alex's approach. The instructors exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Finally, one of them, a crystalline being whose shimmering form refracted the room's light, spoke. What you have demonstrated is remarkable, they said. Not just intellectual capability, but a deeper understanding of the challenges posed by complexity and ambiguity. Traits we once believed only possible through augmentation. Another instructor, a towering insectoid figure, added, your performance suggests that neural interfaces, while powerful, may limit certain forms of thought. Creativity, empathy, and adaptability, these are qualities we must now reevaluate in our educational systems. The room buzzed with the weight of their words. The neural interface, long considered the pinnacle of galactic intellect, was being called into question. After the review, Alex returned to their seat as the proctor concluded the ceremony. Today marks a turning point, it said. The Galactic Intelligence exam has shown us not just who is the brightest, but what intelligence truly means. As the crowd dispersed, students approached Alex, some to offer congratulations, others to apologize for their earlier mockery. Even Nyrvek, his pride clearly wounded, muttered a grudging, you earned it, human. Later, as Alex stood beneath the twin suns of the Academy courtyard, an instructor approached, a humanoid figure with metallic skin and piercing eyes. You've done more than excel in an exam, the instructor said. You've shown the galaxy that intelligence isn't about tools or enhancements, it's about the mind behind them. The Academy would like to invite you to help redesign our curriculum. Alex hesitated, the gravity of the offer sinking in. I'll think about it, they said, their gaze turning toward the horizon. But right now, I just want to savor the moment. The instructor nodded, and as they walked away, Alex stood alone, the vastness of the galaxy stretching before them. For the first time, it wasn't daunting, it was full of possibility. Humanity hadn't just proven their worth. They had redefined what it meant to think, to innovate, and to lead. And Alex knew this was only the beginning of a much larger journey.